Well, here we are, week number 3. It's going by pretty fast. It feels like just yesterday we were walking through here for the first time. Now we're to the point where we're going to put some color, or at least some primer, to then put some color, which is the same color as the primer, on the ceilings to finally finish those up. Well, an hour and a half later, and it's starting to look a little bit more like a ceiling rather than a construction zone. This spot in the staircase, as usual, as it has been this entire project, is the most difficult spot to get. I don't actually look forward to painting this part because not only is it hard to get to, even with a ladder in the middle, but this is a south-facing window. This is a single pane glass window, so the sun is always in your eyes, and it's very, very warm right here. Really can't wait to get this window replaced, but that's not gonna happen for at least a month and a half at this point. Also taking a quick look at things now that has more of a uniform color, there's quite a few nail heads that are starting to poke their heads out. It's quite obvious. You can tell where the beam is and where the sheetrock was actually attached. So I think I'm gonna actually stir up some hot mud and just kind of patch over these to make them slightly less obvious. So I made some patches on the ceiling up there to hide the holes, and the primer is also drying. So in the meantime, I'm trying to clean up the garage. This is a little bit of what you saw last week. All these wires that really didn't go to anything. So now I think with a little bit of time on my side, I might get rid of this shelf and probably that shelf. Yeah, barely attached. Also doesn't really help that this part sticks out from this door. So when you open it, if you don't open it all the way, you're gonna smack your head on that thing. Ooh, ah, ee. Paint. I must say, this looks very, very good. Don't kid yourself, it looks great.
I just rubbed my eyeball with paint on. Oh, frick. Oh, I did. Is there paint on my eyelid?
Oh, yes.
There's paint.
You made yourself some mascara.
No. Glasses. I got mud on my face. It's quite the night.
Oh yeah, I also fixed the door handle. It is brand new and solid. Quick update since it's a short work day, since we're finishing in the afternoon, but always painted. Staircase is painted. Thankfully, I won't have to be on that ladder in that spot, at least anytime soon. And finished all the way here to the master. Oh, almost forgot, closet is also done. This was the first thing we did this morning. And while I was doing all the painting, Caitlin has textured over this spot. So now the full bathroom is ready to be primed and painted. And we did one more skim coat on this. It's looking better every day. Well, we find ourselves at the end of another weekend, but we have another piece of ceiling done. This is all painted in the bathroom and wet patch. I love that, turned out so good. Not only that, but the ceiling in the closet was done yesterday, and now the plastic is coming down finally. We got some touch-up paint up in the corners there, so we don't see the obvious overlaps like you see everywhere else with some of the old paint we found in the garage. The light fixture is working. Beautiful. Speaking of lighting, we have the cans in the hallway set up. I haven't put them in yet because these two lights do have a temperature control. I want to make sure that the temperature is set to the way we like it before I shove everything up there. So maybe I'll come back tonight and actually try it out. So now it's nighttime and we have cans. 1 can, 2 can, and let there be light. They look clean. This is fantastic. Although now that the can lights are done, I need to fix this guy, aka the staircase light, because this has a unique wiring setup. It's a 3-way switch with the light switch way down there at the railing, and it's doing some weird things. So on the downstairs, this switch, flip it on, flip it off, the chandelier works perfectly. But now we have that one off. If we go to this light switch, you can see it's already on, but nothing happens. Then when you're upstairs, so that one is now switched on because of course the light is on. But now when we flick this switch, it just kind of flickers for a second. It goes from on to on. So I'm going to look up some videos, maybe some diagrams, see what's going on. Well, at least I kind of got it fixed. I made it look nicer. We're replacing all the light switches, the old school little dongles, with these rockers that we both prefer. In fact, pulling that one off, it's a good thing we're replacing this because this one just disintegrated. It broke apart completely. So that wasn't really long for this world. So, did I actually fix this? Not really. Yes, you can see here, it turns the light on and off, which is fantastic. However, this light switch is on, and if I turn this off, see, I can also flick this on and off. The light goes on and off. But if I keep this off, then this switch is pretty much dead. I can do whatever I want. Nothing happens. All that I know is that that switch just has one 3-way wire going into it, and then it comes up to the box here. And I thought I had wired it correctly. I looked at a diagram, but who knows? Well, we're back at it for another evening during the week, and this one hopefully won't take that long, and this section of the video might be a how-to or might be how not to, depending on how well this goes. But right here is a very obvious patch that they did not clean up and retexture. So I'm going to try some texture in a can that we got, and this is going to be my test because this house has a lot of patches on the wall, and we're going to have to be doing this a lot. So this is the perfect test spot, I think, because it's in the closet, so no one's really going to see it, and if they do, who cares? And we have the paint ready on this, so we can actually see what it looks like when it's all said and done, because sometimes with the texture and things like that, if it's different colors after you sand it, being white against brown, all that stuff, that, you know, maybe it doesn't look as clean as it should be. But with a full paint, we should be able to see whether or not I actually know what I'm doing. And for reference, as of before, this is the patch in question. It's clearly just a glob of joint compound, and then they slap some paint on it. And a few minutes later, a lot of sanding, so a lot of paint is gone. There's also a lot of dust everywhere, but we got everything taped up because obviously I don't want the texture to go onto any of the shelves or the hook right here. Just to mask everything off, we're going to spray this and see what it looks like. Let it sit for like 5 or 10 minutes and then knock it down with a knife, and then hopefully it'll look good enough that in a half an hour, 45 minutes after that, I can actually paint it. And less than a minute later, we sprayed it. You can tell exactly where I started because it came out very clumpy. So I would advise that if you're doing a texture in a can type thing, to, even if you test it on something else, just to spray like once or twice away from whatever you're doing so that the initial clumps just don't show up. But the rest of this, right here and down here, I think looks pretty good. Hey, that turned into a bit of all right. This was actually a little tricky because with the knockdown knife, or the taping knife rather, it wouldn't get those big clobs you saw a second ago right around here. In fact, actually after I did that with the knife, it was still there, so I just took my hand and just kind of lightly brushed, kind of like this, over everything, and I think that actually did a lot better because not only did it take off those huge clumps, but it also smoothed everything out a little bit. So you know how sometimes you can see with a knife, you can see the scrape marks just a little bit? That actually smoothed everything out, and so I think this texture is actually pretty good. And voila, we have our painted patch. And it looks meh. I'll admit, it looks okay. I mean, I think at initial glance you wouldn't think that it's textured, but then on second or third glance you would look and say, okay, yeah, there's something else going on behind there. I think what happened was I put the texture on a little bit too heavy, so it's very busy, especially right here, compared to something like directly above. It's not terrible actually now that I look at it. And once the paint dries, of course, this lays on pretty dark for whatever reason, but I think once it all dries up, it should look pretty seamless. maybe. And while I was drying, I decided to go ahead and switch this light switch, so now we have another brand new rocker panel in the closet. Small project tonight, we're replacing the garage door openers from these crappy, disgusting, sunburnt ones to these newer ones. These are from the condo, because we're actually listing the condo for sale this weekend, so before I do that, I want to switch these over and give the condo the crappy ones, so that way we have slightly newer stuff. So apologies to anyone that buys the condo. There's the problem. Well, lots of little things tonight. I've only been here for like a half an hour, but I got a lot of stuff done. First thing was putting in the new garage door openers. That was easy. Then I went around and checked every single outlet on the entire lower level. I didn't check the top because we are actually going to replace all of those, and we haven't gotten to that yet, so no bother checking that. With the grounds and the neutrals and the hots, making sure everything was good. Only one was in the kitchen around the corner there, but fixed that. Then, since I had some relatively good success with the texture in a can, I went ahead and just kind of found spots and sprayed on some of this texture stuff. And I actually learned a lot in the process. So this was the first one that I did, and is probably the worst because a couple of things that I didn't realize is that the texture that's already on here isn't really knocked down at all. And this is orange peel, and the can is orange peel, but in the instructions it says if you want, you can knock it down a little bit to kind of flatten it out. Kind of like right there. You can see that it's got a flat spot, but for the most part, this doesn't have any flat spots. I discovered that I can just spray this thing on and just let it sit, and then maybe scrape down some of the bigger stuff after like 30 minutes, basically when it's pretty much fully dry. That way I don't get any flat spots. I discovered the no knockdown in some of the patches down here in the living room, so these ones, I think it might still be a little too heavy, but I think overall the texture is much more in line with what's on the wall right now. Also, here's a good PSA to make sure that you buy quality paint, because as you probably saw, I put this fun little smiley just with some leftover primer, and I actually went over it with the paint that they used in this room, and it is like the most bargain bin cheap stuff. It's like watery almost, and you can see even some of this, I did 2 coats and it doesn't really stick on that much. You can clearly see where the primer is. It's terrible. I'm really glad that we're going to be replacing this soon. No more new house progress because we had to deal with the old house, but the old condo is officially for sale.